Hello, I'm going to take you through a game I just played, and I'm going to explain to you the reasons behind what I do. Okay, I was playing the black pieces, faced e4. Now, I don't like to let my opponent get in d4 as well, where both the pawns are here and here. If he does this, both bishops have open lines, as compared to pawn on d3 where I'll block off the light square bishop. And not only that, but with the pawns both here and here, both of them can potentially push even further and get a big space advantage. So I played c5. Now you can block it with either e5 or c5. The difference is if I played e5, immediately white can develop his knight and attack the pawn, so I gotta defend it. And also, with this, it's on this diagonal, on this one. And with c5, it's not in the way. So I can get a bishop to here and look all the way down instead of looking directly at my pawn. So that's why I play this. The next move, it takes advantage in a way of me playing c5 because there's no pawn here to take this pawn, so he's got all this protected. He's got a nice square for his knight to come to where the pawn's already moved in front of it, so it's really smart. So, yeah, this gets pretty dangerous for black sometimes because you can push either e5 or f5, and he usually castles, and the rook comes here, and it looks down at this weak square where only my king's protecting it. I played d6. Immediately, my bishop has more scope here. Because the pawn's already moved forward 2 squares, he can't block it with his pawn. So maybe one day I'll get my knight here, and my bishop comes out here, and it's attacking his queen. And also with this move, I'm protecting this square a little bit more. So he can't just push e5 for free, because I can trade. Okay, he played f5 here, and I don't think this is such a good decision. He's moving a pawn into my territory, and it's not clear what he's doing there. More concretely, my plan is to go g6 with the pawn, and then get my bishop to here where it looks down, and this just helps me. I'll show you why. First I played the knight out because I'm attacking this pawn and always got to defend it, so it's just a tempo for me. So he defends it. Now I bring out my other knight. Mainly to make it impossible for him to push the pawn. Before the knight was there could have been trades here, maybe. Who knows? This knight wants to go to this square anyway, so I figured why not just do it straight away. He gets his knight out. Pretty much the same reason. Best square for the knight. Trying to control the center. Now I play g6. So I'm attacking this pawn twice. It's only defended once. It's hard for him to defend it. I can move the pawn forward and then I'll take with the knight. And if he trades, by taking this pawn, I take back and my rook's got an open file. Not such a big deal, but maybe it's his best choice. Or he could just leave it there and develop. That's dangerous. That's what he done. So he brings the bishop out, pins my knight to the king. Not such a big deal at the moment because the knight isn't needed right now, and the other knight can't jump in to attack it again because I got both my pawns here. So now I decide to win a pawn, and this is what happens. And he plays a good move here, so my bishop is undefended, and if he can develop while threatening, it's usually a good move. So he castles, and now this rook is looking all the way down at the bishop once the knight moves. The knight doesn't really have a good square. Maybe it can hop into here or here, and then this bishop's been attacked. And later on, white might want to look at this pawn on this knight too. So I decide to play this move. Yes, the knight's still pinned, but that pin won't last forever once I play a6, and if the bishop moves back b5, the bishop has to go away from the pin. So that's not a massive concern for me. The reason I play the queen here is because I want this bishop to be a body blocker for this knight. So I want to leave this bishop here. And it's hard for him to remove the bishop. He can't do this because the knight and the bishop are both looking at it. Maybe the best plan is to do this. Oops. It's a little slow and opens up his king, but I think that would be worth a shot. This open file is going to be useful for me, hopefully. It's looking directly at the king, so I definitely want to put the rook there. He plays this. Bishop and the knight are looking at this square. The bishop can come out to about here or here. And there's another pretty useful thing about that move. Now I can't do this. Pawn up, bishop, pawn up, bishop comes here. And at the ends, I can't make a pawn chain with this one where there'd be 3 pawns and the bishop's trapped. Because then pawn takes, my pawn takes, bishop takes. So that's a little subtle point to that move. Okay, next up, play the rook here. Just logical. Sure, he's attacking this square, but white moves the knight in anyway, because the bishop's defending. And yes, my rook can take, but this rook is very valuable, and this knight isn't so hot here. It isn't particularly doing anything. If you notice, king's defending, bishop's defending. So I don't see a future for the knight. You can't even gang up on his pawn, because my knight's here defending that square. So it's like, what's your knight doing here? I was expecting a bishop, at least my knight's been attacked. At least it's got a purpose. I don't see the point of this knight. I could immediately kick it away, honestly. Like, what's going to happen if I kick it away? It's going to go back. But I figured the knight isn't... Well, it's actually better back where it was than here. I played this, and there's a reason for this. The knight's only hope here is to jump into this square. And here, it's protected by the other knight, and it can trade itself for my good knight, where I'd have to, well, let's say he takes, then I take, I'm opening out my king, yeah, creating weaknesses, like the 2 pawns are doubled, this pawn isn't protected. Not a big deal, the main thing is open file. And why give him that option? That's the only future for the knight that I see. So yeah, that was the reason for this move, and he can't do anything about it right now. So what did he do? He took my knight, and can't take with the queen because that's what's defending my bishop. So only one move, pawn takes. Next up, it's knight. Now this is a pretty shallow move. It's attacking his pawn. And what are my options? Pushing the pawn up is a possibility, but if he trades, I get doubled pawns here and here, and you know, it'd be okay, but it doesn't really achieve much, doesn't really help me much, it's not much at all. What else can I do? I can't defend with my queen because, again, this guy dies. The only way I can defend is with this bishop. And I looked at playing the pawn up to here. However, here, notice that pawn isn't defended. And if white eventually gets an attack on this pawn, could be a problem. I may have a defense, I may be able to push the pawn up. I could also defend with this bishop. So it could get really heated around this square. So that was a possibility, but I just played it a bit cooler and I just moved it up one square. So now this guy's defended. And this is solider. Now he brought his queen. Now this is a threat because it's lined up with my king. The only thing that weighs the pawn. So therefore, if white takes the bishop, my pawn is now defending and it can't capture back because I'll lose my king to the queen. So what to do here? I can move my bishop. However, the bishop is body blocking the knight and the rook will take. Can't see a way to defend the bishop again. So I played this. I moved my king out of the line of fire. I moved it one square instead of castling because this is also an open file. That's where my rook might want to go in the future as compared to the center where, who knows. But I just kept it like this. My queen is playing a useful role here, defending this pawn. If not possible, so my queen has to stay around to defend. Here maybe this plan could have been good, because this knight's undefended. Of course I can just move my bishop to defend the knight, but you gotta do something. Could be risky though. My pawn can come up and attack. That was his move, by the way. But back to this, yeah. My pawn can attack the knight, kick it back, and then if these pawns are pushed, who knows? I gotta move my bishop out of the line of fire. This goes here. I can eventually crack his structure with a pawn up, take. The queen's defending, but the knight's attacking. Yeah, so that move is double-edged. Probably not good in the long run for his king. So he did this. Now, it's obvious he's got a check. By the way, I thought this might be a bit better. Instead of that, I thought maybe moving the pawn forward. And then, I don't know, bring the bishop here. Because it's looking on a good diagonal, looking at this unprotected knight. So, it's something. Like, what he did was threaten a check, but the check doesn't do anything. I can just move my king away again. And here, there's nothing. Knight can't check. Like, I don't see any attack. So what am I to do? I can attack this knight. But I see that his knight, its main feature is to go to here. And same as the bishop, like its best square isn't the check, it's actually here. So I just pushed it in. Gaining space for my knight and my queen to come to this square. Both could do well, my knight especially, because if my knight gets to here, this square is protected by my pawn. So someday it's got dreams of coming into here where that's where it's looking at. So yeah, that knight's a complete nightmare. The queen also, when it's here, it's looking at this, same as my rook, so I got ideas on his king. So yeah, there's a few things for that move. And I want to do it early, because if I don't, maybe he might push. Of course here it's no good. He probably can't do that anyway, honestly. But I figured get it in before his knight comes. And then his knight's, I don't know about a square. Still not much, but I gain the space early. Now what's he to do? Here I thought a good option for him is to try and bring his knight to here, since I gave him the space. The knight here would be really good, because it can jump in to attack my queen, and he's got two knights on this square, so a knight can come in and take. If I take back with the queen, so the knight wins my queen, and that's no good. And yeah, I can lose a rook for the two knights, not so hot. But I liked that plan. It's a bit slow, but he'd have to go b3, then knight to b2, then knight to c4, and that's a really good square for the knight. But it takes 3 moves, so what could I do? Probably I'd push the knight away, or not even yet. I'd have to bring the bishop here, push, and then try and push this pawn. I don't think I got such a hot plan here, so that was pretty good for him. Instead, he saw that this pawn is being attacked once, defended once. He decided to attack it again. The queen here, and that's a pretty bold move. He's attacking my knight. He can take it with check. He can take this guy. Takes and queen takes, he's on his pawn. So yeah, the move looks scary. Now what am I to do about it? Well, there's one move that solves both problems. And I did it. I moved the knight here. It's blocking, so the queen is no longer attacking this pawn. So this pawn's fine. And when the knight moves out of its square, it's now defending the square it came from, because it can always jump back. So the queen can't come in and check, and it can't go anywhere else. At this point I was looking at next moving my bishop to kick the queen back. What did he do? Now he starts chipping away. Now this move, I don't know. I would have preferred, well, from his point of view, to push it all the way, and then at least like I got to capture on passant because I don't want to move my knight, and that's already in a really good spot, and it's probably the best square on the board for it. Like I can't jump in here yet. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. So yeah, I don't know why he didn't just push it to 2 squares. Because here, which is already done, it's not actually doing anything. Like, we can trade. And then his queen can take the pawn, which I guess was his plan. I started looking at moving the knight to defend the pawn, because then the queen would defend it. Then I looked at the bishop, because the bishop would defend through the queen and the queen has no move. So that would have been a pretty good move. However, it gets in the way of the rook. So it's not perfect. And then I found a move that was a real killer. Forking both the queen and the knight. And I don't see what I can do. How does he have any active plan here? His main concern is the queen, and the queen has nowhere to go that's any use besides going backwards. And there's just nothing else. So where can the queen go to? It can go back. I'll just take. So he played this, defending the knight. And here, like, I can just take. I really can just take. The bishop can't even take back straight away because this pawn comes up, and then when the bishop moves, he loses his queen. So he's going to lose heavy material. Actually, if I take with the pawn and the bishop takes, it's check. So once I move my king, well, I can move his queen here, I guess, to defend the bishop. Then I kick it back, bishop comes back. I got that open, and I got this pawn too. So that was pretty good. That really was. However, I wanted a little more. Not necessary, but I wanted to keep this rook on its open file. If I take with the pawn, it's blocking the rook, and the rook's no longer so good. So I pushed the pawn up. Now I want to take this knight, and he can't even take back anymore. So I'm getting even more. Now this does open him up to sacrifice his knight for a central pawn, which is probably the best because it's a check. So I gotta take care of my king first, and then he moves his queen away. So what did he do? He took this pawn. Okay. So he's opening up the line for his bishop to check, which is no big deal. I just move, and there's nothing else. And he's also opening up his knight. Now, if you notice, this knight is on the way for the queen. But that'll come in handy later. Right now, I did this. I just took the pawn back. I'm making sure the knight can't come back into the game. The knight's absolutely useless unless he wants to spend 3 moves. Oops. Getting it back into the game. It's got no future. He can't do anything here in one move. It'll take 2 moves. He has to move his knight and then his queen. So he's still going to lose his knight next move. So he's in the same problem. He checked me. Whatever. And now he moved his queen. Now, sure, I can win the knight. And then he will win my pawn. His queen's a little more actively placed here, and it's got my big central pawn that's doing a lot for me. So I got greedy and I thought, can I actually defend this pawn and still, win something? And what I said before turned out to work. I'll show you. I defend the pawn, and now my queen's attacking this knight. And if it takes the knight, next it's attacking the bishop. So it's chain reaction. So what's he going to lose? I guess I can take both. One and then the other. Of course, if I take this guy, he can take with the knight. Bishop takes, rook takes, check, king moves, queen takes, and the queen and the rook are here and here. And I want to give him as little chance as possible, so that's too much activity for him. So I just took this knight because now there's only the rook and the bishop's here, and importantly, he can't take this pawn. You might think, well, see? He would be able to take it normally, but my queen's defending the pawn too, so I just take his queen, my queen. That's a nice little detail of the queen being on the same rank. Oops. Alright, so here we are. So, yeah, it's pretty gloomy. I'm attacking his bishop. His knight's being attacked. So, he gives up his knight for a pawn. At least it's something. Now, the knight is attacking this pawn. So, I decide to take the knight instead of the bishop. And this pawn is still defended. And the queen can't really get in anywhere. It's the main thing, the queen can't do anything. Now I'm attacking this bishop. Can move the bishop, but he plays an interesting move. b4. Now I looked at my knight taking, but then the problem is this pawn, it dies. And the queen gets a good square. Because again, this. So b4 isn't actually threatening me in any way besides pawn takes. Because if rook takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. Yeah, rook for a bishop. It's an option, but his bishop's hanging there because his pawn's moved to take, so he loses 2 pieces. So that's not so great. Now, of course, what he wants to do is block this off and take. I have many options here. I could bring my knight in to block the rook. I could bring my knight in here so the queen can't. Oh, but then the queen comes in here, so the knight's in a good spot. So I just protect this pawn again. Now the rook's protecting, and if he kicks the rook, it's going to attack the queen. So the queen has to move. So the rook's, it's really active. What can you do about this position? Next up, I'm probably going to just move my king out the way and then take the pawn. Here's his queen. This is attacking the bishop. One move that comes to mind is just bring my king to defend the bishop. What did I do in the game? I did a nice one. I looked at this, rook takes pawn, and then if king takes, the knight comes in and checks and wins the queen. However, if queen takes, I can't exploit the queen being here. Like, knight comes in, queen just moves, and there's nothing else. I've just lost mode for nothing. So, seeing this pawn is a vulnerability and this bishop's attacked, this square is really good for the knight because it hits them both. So I did this. See how that works? Queen can't do anything. Right, I'm going to win this pawn with check. And even if it comes in here, all it can do is look at this rook. So queen's defending this square. And I can just move my bishop, my rook. And yeah, there's really nothing. I'm attacking his queen too, so he's got to move it. He can't attack my queen. I'm so far ahead in material. Now, the last thing I want to allow is queen takes rook with check. No way. I could move my king. That doesn't look so bad. I found a more active move though. A check is more important. He's got to deal with this. Now, if he moved his king here, I'd probably still do... Nah. King there was probably the better move. I'm not seeing a direct answer right now. Probably I just move my rook and then bring my bishop. However, my knight's been attacked. So if the king comes here, yeah, looks like he'd win at least a knight there. Yeah, the problem is I can't see a clear way to kill him here with the king here. My knight's gonna get taken, or my rook's gonna get taken, and I don't think I have an active way to do anything special. I think I'm just losing my knight. Yeah, he should have definitely done that. Because my plan only accounted for the king going to the corner. I'll show you why the king to the corner works. Now this comes in, and this is like really the finisher. The queen's got no communication. It's gonna get taken. And if the queen moves anywhere, like, well, it can't even go there. Oh geez, doesn't really have a good square actually. But let's say well, it takes the knight. Then this is opened up. My rook's in the way of the bishop, who's going to check the king. So the queen will be here, and my rook moves either here or here. King's in check. King has to move, and then I win his queen. See that again? Queen takes. Queen's here. Now the bishop wants to check the king, so I move the rook. That's actually checkmate, because the rook's protecting here. King can't go here, obviously. Queen blocks, bishop takes queen. And that's just checkmate. So he's got to take the rook, really, which he does. Then check comes, king moves, and I'm just dealing with this. King gets out of the way of this, and yeah, he just resigned here. I'm up way too much. Yeah, so that was that.